Good morning. How are you today? We had a hell of a storm yesterday. I think I have at least a picture of it. And today, well, it washed away some of the heat. It's in the high 70s. It's like being in a steam bath, though, and there's a slight wind, so it's nice. So I hope it's better wherever you are to get out safely, despite the heat. So the heat is on Trump and Company today at around 2 o'clock or so. It won't leave like an online train. We're supposed to have the unveiling of the indictments, and I don't know if they're separate or combined, against the Trump organization and against the chief financial officer, Weisselberg. The questions to look for, and I don't know the answers yet. After 2 I will, and I'll talk about it tomorrow, I suppose. The questions are they going to name people who are the beneficiaries of whatever Weisselberg did wrong in terms of concealing these expenses from the taxes? And will it be the state and federal taxes? There are theories for both. Will it be a series of acts that could be considered to be individual criminal acts, such that we have a criminal organization doing it, such that it might qualify for RICO status, meaning Racketeer Influence Corrupt Organization? And if that, then you have a situation in which you have stronger tools against Daddy Trump's piggy bank. And he also relies on this structure for purposes of loans, and he's in a difficult financial situation anyhow. And it leaves open the question, did the prosecution team do this on purpose, knowing of how strained he is financially? That's what happens in a lot of criminal cases. It'll be interesting to see if other people are named, either anonymously, person 1, person 2, person 3, or actually named. And normally people read these indictments to see what's hidden. Who else is involved? Who is going to be either a witness for the prosecution or is another target in the case? So presumably we'll know all that by the close of business today. Another case that's a criminal case that's interesting is the Cosby case. And people have said, oh, he got off on a procedural defect, some technicality. Well, the technicality was that the prosecutor in outside Philadelphia, said, I'm not going to prosecute you. I don't think there's a case there. And then Cosby, was engaged in a civil case, and so he did not invoke the Fifth Amendment to protect himself. And in civil cases, if you do invoke the Fifth Amendment, since there's not a criminal penalty, it can be held against you. You're being silent, so I can draw negative inferences for that purpose. So he did not invoke the Fifth. What admissions he made in depositions in that action were the basis of a settlement of about $3 million with one of the victims. Now, the prosecutor who offered immunity, he left office, and his successor decided to ignore the agreement that the former prosecutor had made, which I'm not going to prosecute you. And on the first trial, there was a hung jury, meaning he was not convicted. And on the second trial, they did two things. They took the confidential settlement and they put it in evidence, and they brought out a string of other people they claimed to be his victims. And they may have been, don't get me wrong. But prior act testimony, which is not itself charged in the indictment, is scrutinized for its probative value as compared to its prejudicial value. Now, that issue was raised in the appeal to the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania, but the court, while discussing it, didn't reach it. What the court said was there was a deal. He wasn't going to be prosecuted, and he was. And so we're throwing out the case, so we're not even going to let you try it again. Now, there was a dissent by 2 of the 7 judges. I think it's a 79-page opinion. It's kind of long-winded, maybe unnecessarily so, but it was a high visibility case. And 2 said, well, we could just suppress those portion of the statement. But that was not the promise. The promise was no prosecution, not that we wouldn't use your statement. So is the decision right or wrong? The decision is right. The second prosecutor, in my opinion, is responsible for misconduct. The victims all suffer because they were misled by this prosecutor that he could do these sharp practices. And, Cosby, kind of rough justice in a way, because what happened is he spent almost 3 years in prison for these offenses, and he's now 82. So it's a terrible case. I don't think it punctures the Me Too trend to go after men or, in a few other cases, women who take advantage of their position and abuse, perhaps you might say, more fragile individuals in sexual cases. Because the facts are so peculiar to this case. An actual promise, for instance. The score of additional witnesses. Now, that's something that may come back against some of the cases, like the Weinstein case. But that's the law. What can you do about it? I think the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania did the right thing. I think the prosecutor did the wrong thing. And I think we have a new kind of generation of legitimately upset people that relied on the prosecution to right or wrong and to protect them from this kind of embarrassment. There is talk about another civil case. I don't know how they could make one, but go to it if you can. I'll only say I'm not upset about Rumsfeld's death. Don't speak ill of the dead. And it's hard to imagine anything this man contributed to the nation. And that's where I see him. He was involved with both Bushes, and he was involved with the weapons of mass destruction that were never found and didn't exist. So I didn't know him. I have no tears for him. Now, there's good news for potheads in Virginia, because as of today, they can grow 4 plants and I think possess up to an ounce. And if they possess more than an ounce, up to a pound, that's a finable offense, and it costs you $25. Above that pound, I think there's a presumption of distribution, and that can cost you a felony, can cost you prison time, and can cost you $250,000. But there's a company in Arlington that is selling little packages of seed and so forth by which you can make your own 4 plants, so you can smoke your own homegrown Mary Jane. So that's what I have for the day. I hope you're well. We'll talk again, I'm sure, about Trump tomorrow after we see what happens today. All the best. Bye-bye.